Good evening and welcome to News Break. We're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, where we're predicting that the South will rise again. And this time it's going to be because of a shared vision between African Americans and other minorities and our European counterpart. The days of slavery is gone. We want a shared vision. We want full first-class citizenship right here in Jackson, Mississippi. So this program is being brought to you by WeBelieveDigital.com. Now you can find us on Roku TV, on Facebook, on YouTube, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, where shows like this are being archived and will remain archived for generations to come, where your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren can come and visualize and see and hear exactly how things were in Jackson, Mississippi in 2022. Now we're going to talk about history a little bit because it's very important that we know where we came from. It's tremendously important to know your history. We'll talk about where we are and what the status of things are today, and then we're going to talk about a vision, how things should look and could be with effective leadership. Now, as always, you can call in at 800-492-5186 and join in on the conversation. We'd love to have your input. Now, we're being viewed all over the world. We're in 139 countries. We're on every social media platform that's out there. So a lot of people are seeing this program and listening to this program. And so we want you to call in at 800-492-5186. My co-host today, as always, is the mighty Chris Young. Chris is a gentleman that has moved down here, and he's got social justice has permeated his being and his brain, and he really wants to make a difference and wants to make something happen that corrects years and years of deficiencies and inadequacies in certain groups being left behind. So he's writing today for the Mississippi Link newspaper, and he has this show, News Breaks, which he leads most of the time. So Chris, it's always good to have you in the studio, and how are things going?
Glad to be here, Mr. Garrett, and things are going just fine. We got movement, whole lot of issues. You know, the copy editor gave us a great list today. All kinds of things going on. We got to share with the listeners.
Well, good. Let's jump right into it. On the list, I see that we're talking about the Jackson City Council. And so for our viewers that are joining us for the first time in Hawaii, give us a little recap on what is the issue with the Jackson City Council.
Well, you know, you mean where it pertains to this, the garbage issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yesterday the City Council had a meeting, and they voted 5-2 to not allow the mayor of the city any access to city funds to pay for ongoing legal appeals. You see, Mr. Garrett, they don't get along here. They don't get along. We have a predominantly African-American city council, 5 blacks, 2 whites, and a black mayor, and they don't seem to get along with one another. The mayor has a vision. He has a strategic plan. He takes some bold steps, and one of those steps he took was to try to shake the tree as far as the trash vendor. And so he opened up a bidding process. This has gone on for, well over a year, many iterations. And the most recent one was yet another African-American vendor being turned down by the predominantly black city council in a 85% black city, you know, behind a blind bidding process. So they essentially favored this company, but then all of a sudden when the blind was pulled off and they found out it was an African-American company from New Orleans and Baton Rouge, been hauling successfully down there for decades, once they found that out, all of a sudden they're against awarding the contract. And so there's been lawsuits going back and forth, emergency declaration. The company was put to work by the mayor. The city councils voted to not pay them. And so now they're well in the beginning of their third week of, the beginning of their fourth week of the fourth month of services, and they haven't been paid a nickel to pick up our trash.
Wow.
So a lot going on.
Well, and for our listening audience and our viewers, just to give you a recap of how we got here, back in October, after 35 years, Waste Management had the contract to pick up the garbage from Jackson streets for 35 years. Now, state law mandates that at the end of 35 years, you must rebid. You have no options. You can no longer extend. You must rebid. So the mayor sent out a request for a proposal for vendors to pick up the garbage from Jackson streets. 3 firms responded: Richards Disposal Service, Waste Management, and FCC. The selection committee recommended FCC to the mayor. The mayor recommended FCC to the city council. The city council voted no, without an explanation on why. They simply voted no. The mayor then went into an emergency declaration because this garbage was going to be all over the streets, and he entered into a contract with a local minority firm, United Waste. And during that emergency contract, the United Waste was gearing up and spent a lot of money getting trucks and getting drivers and getting organized to be able to pick up the garbage on the streets of Jackson. Well, the council voted that there was no emergency, therefore nullified the emergency contract that had been awarded to a local African-American firm. The mayor then says that that contract has been nullified without any reason or explanation. So the mayor then was forced to go into a 1-year extension with Waste Management while he sent out for requests for proposals again. This time he instituted, as Chris said, a blind bid concept so that no one would even know who the responders are. The mayor trying to be completely and totally objective and trying to actually gave up all of the influence of his office in trying to be objective. The committee received 3 proposals. This time it was Richards Disposal and Waste Management. FCC chose not to participate, and many believe that contractors will no longer work in Jackson in this environment, and I can understand why. But the blind bid process was reviewed by the committee, and the committee selected a firm and submitted that firm to the mayor, who then submitted it to the city council, and it was Richards Disposal Services, not Waste Management. Once again, this council voted to deny the award of that contract to Richards Disposal Services, which happened to be an African-American firm. Now, without explanation. So the mayor's position is that they acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner, and their vote should be set aside. And so they're in the court hearings about that very issue on an ongoing basis. So that's how we got here, and Chris said, and all of the legal trappings that's going on now. But the interesting thing, Chris, 5 members of the African-American City Council are African-Americans.
Yeah.
5 members of the Jackson City Council are African-Americans.
Yes, sir.
And they voted against an African-American firm.
Repeatedly.
And so I don't believe that Richards can even charge them with discrimination. I don't believe that a black man can charge another black man with discrimination. And so what recourse does Richards Disposal Services have? Yeah,
it's interesting. We'll see. I mean, they recently filed suit to get paid for the first 2 months. So that would come up to $1.6 million, I believe it is. So they finally, decided to exert their rights to get paid for the work that they've been doing. I mean, they were ordered to work by the mayor under an emergency status situation, God knows it was a rocky start, but they had no turnover from the other company, and they didn't get the best information from the city about the routes and stuff, because Waste Management had had it so long that the people in the city that would typically keep an eye on those things had stopped keeping up with the routes.
Right.
And they got no turnover whatsoever. They were all kind of like starting from scratch.
Yeah, what we're saying is that there were no data to give the incoming provider on what streets were, what the routes that had been used were, and things of that nature. So Richards had to do a quick study. Not only had to get all the equipment in here and hire all of the manpower, et cetera, but then he had to go out and map the city to try to create routes so that he could get this garbage picked up.
Right.
And he did a good job on that, Chris. Now, I heard some council members had some disparaging remarks about Richards Disposal Services and why he shouldn't get paid. I believe Kenny Stokes had one. Do you recall?
Yeah, was that the one about if the kid comes?
Yes.
It's hard to keep a straight face. But these are grown-ups now. These are grown adults, elected black officials in this case in a black city, and you want to say, well, if the neighbor kid comes over and cuts your grass and you didn't give him permission, then you don't have to pay him. Now, come on now. It wasn't like that in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Right.
You see the kid trying to be enterprising or do what was suggested to them to do, maybe by their parents or what have you, and obviously you're going to take care of that kid.
You reward that.
You reward that behavior of getting in there and doing the work. In this case, work that if it's not done, Mr. Garrett, you're talking about you're talking about bad mojo with the health and welfare of the city.
Wow. And so the little boy with his lawnmower, Mr. Stokes says he wouldn't pay the little boy, so I'm not going to pay Richards.
I'm not going to pay Richards.
Now, we got a contract that's worth $1 million. I believe it was a $1.2 million a year savings.
Savings, yeah.
In Richards' proposal.
Yes.
And it's over $800,000 a month in a contract. And then we have a grown man who makes the likeliness of a little boy with a lawnmower in the neighborhood to Richards Disposal Service.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
There was another one, not to pile on Mr. Stokes, but God knows he seems to attract this kind of stuff, but 3 weeks to a month after Richards Disposal had relocated its staging area because of complaints from people that seemed to come up out of nowhere, and a bullet came through I believe the word is a cowling on an aircraft over at Hawkins Field. Now, Richard had been out of there for over 3 weeks, Mr. Garrett. It was close to a month that Richards has been out of there, but Mr. Stokes seemed to infer that there was connected to the fact that Richards had been there, and that's why a bullet, because we got bullets flying in Jackson, that's why a bullet had found its way and went through the cowling of an aircraft, which is going to require repair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you equate those?
So his position was that Richard caused that?
It had to do with the garbage trucks that had been over there weeks after they were gone.
Oh, wow.
Weeks after they were gone.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
But who's going to listen to stuff like that? That's another issue, too.
Well, I understand that Councilman Vernon Hartley had a few things to say.
He was a strong proponent for the environmental aspects of when the Richards had their staging area over at the Hawkins Airfield, saying that those two things didn't go together.
But he also said that if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
I wonder why it would be that in a city where minority contractors get less than 5% of contracts for goods and services, in an 85% black city with a 85% 98% black council don't think that something's broken.
Yeah, I mean, when you get the new bid in, Mr. Garrett, $1.2 million savings per year, there's your evidence of brokenness. Yes. There's your evidence that this waste management has been bilking this community, this cash-strapped community, for years and years.
Right. Chris, we're running up on a break.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting ready to go to a commercial. But you are viewing this show from Jackson, Mississippi in the broadcast studio of WeBelieveDigital.com. We're being seen on Facebook, on Roku TV, on YouTube, on our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. You can call us at 800-492-5186. We'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned.
Advertise on WeBelieve.Global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.Global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippilink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi in We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. We're being seen in over 139 countries. We're on all of the social media platforms, inclusive of Roku TV, YouTube, Facebook, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, where shows like this are archived forever. So the generations to come will be able to go back and review the critical issues that we were facing in 2022. As always, my co-host is Chris Young, and we've been talking about the garbage contract and the actions of the Jackson City Council. But Chris, I believe you want to move to another subject.
Well, it's big news. I mean, it made national news when they, with the Dobbs decision. The Supreme Court, they refer to it as the Dobbs decision that was originated here in Mississippi. And the trigger law has gone into effect, and the last abortion clinic in Mississippi, located here in Jackson, had to close last week. And it's closed up, and that's done. So people don't have, women don't have that option any longer. But and so obviously that's been a lot of talk nationwide about that having happened. And the ACLU of Mississippi hired somebody to do some polling on that subject. And, among the many things that they found, this is, they polled 872 likely voters between June 28th and July 6th. And what they found is as follows: 51% of the people that they polled disagreed with the decision to curtail abortions in Mississippi. 42% agreed. 8 people were not sure. When you look at how women responded, 56% of these likely voters in Mississippi, 56% disagreed, and 37% agreed. Men, it was a lot closer. 48% supported the decision to curtail abortions in the state, and 44% did not support the decision. The survey also found very interesting, and something that's very important, is that this state refuses to expand Medicaid. They look at it like because it, they want to attach the name Obamacare to it, and therefore it's no good. But a minimum of 300,000 Mississippi citizens are deeply impacted by the lack of expanding Medicaid. 76% of those surveyed favored expanding Medicaid, but yet our elected officials have no intention of doing that. 20% opposed. And I share that with you against the backdrop of Mississippi having the highest fetal death rate in the country, having the highest infant death rate in the country, having the lowest overall life expectancy of any state in the country, having the highest COVID death rate of any state in the country, and a pregnancy mortality rate in Mississippi 1.9 times higher than the United States as a whole. So obviously impacting black women the most, affecting lots of women, but affecting black women the most.
Well, this is a tough issue here in the Bible Belt, in the Christian stronghold. And so, you got a lot of families divided on that issue. It's certainly one that is going to determine the outcome of the midterm elections, many consultants are indicating. And I'm a little disappointed. I've been disappointed with Mississippi's position being last in every category. And the things that you just talked about just absolutely are heart-wrenching, that, that we are that bad off in Mississippi, where our numbers just reflect that we're in a dismal position. And I wonder why anyone stays in Mississippi under those conditions.
Well, Mr. Garrett, I did find one category that Mississippi is first in.
What is that?
First in the nation.
What is that?
Church attending. No other state in the nation has more people attending church with more frequency than we have here in Mississippi. So you'd think that would be some sort of a solution there, but it just confounds the problem even more.
Yeah, I don't know what the church's position on abortion is. I do know what my pastor's position is on that, but it's divided this country, and being number one in churches and liquor stores and pawn shops and payday lenders, the category that we don't want to be first, and the murder capital of the world, we don't want to be first in those categories. So, it's terrible. Now, you mentioned that the state won't expand Medicaid because it's called Obamacare.
That's right.
What are the economic impacts associated with the expansion of Medicaid to this poor state?
Yeah, the number is staggering. $5 and I believe it was 46 cents would be returned for every dollar that of Mississippi taxpayer money. For every $1 Mississippi tax dollar is spent on providing this Medicaid coverage for people that desperately need it, the state of Mississippi would get back $5.46 from the federal government.
And we turn that down.
They turn that down.
And yet we are classified as a welfare state because we send $1 to Washington, and I believe we get $3 and change back.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we turn that down?
Yeah, they don't want to turn that down.
No.
And they don't want to turn the TANF funds down, but yet they then embezzled some of these folks $74 million that's earmarked from the federal government to go to the neediest people in each state.
You're going to have to give our viewers a little background information on what you just said. There is lots of people have been indicted for corruption associated with the misappropriation of TANF funds. Mm-hmm. And it rises to the highest level in our state,
yes,
all the way up to our previous governor.
Yes.
You want to share a little background on that?
Well, I mean, all 50 states receive this temporary assistance for needy families funding, and Mississippi gets tens of millions of dollars every single year. The problem is there's no accountability attached to those funds from the federal government. So Mississippi, the state of Mississippi, does not have to go back to the feds with specific accountability about how they've used that money. The federal government is saying, look, we're going to give this to all 50 states. We know you got needy people out there. We want to make sure that they're covered. But here in Mississippi, they seem to pride themselves. They call it the welfare rolls. They seem to pride themselves on whittling away at those welfare rolls on an annual basis.
So Mississippi has a small amount of people that are actually on the welfare rolls?
They go out of their way to keep that list as short as possible, but still taking in those tens of millions of dollars a year from the federal government. But now, what this scandal has revealed, this corruption going all the way to the governor's mansion, has revealed that that when that TANF money comes in from Washington, the governor, who has the only statutory responsibility for the money, passes it off to the Director of Human Services, and that's where the deeds, that's where the nasty deeds, the wicked deeds began. That person then funnels it off to different nonprofits that say they're going to do things that could potentially serve needy people, but in reality, that's done at a very minimal level, and that money is going off into other areas. That's why you got Brett Favre getting $8 million to donate a volleyball stadium to the University of Southern Mississippi. What has that got to do with the least among us?
Not very much, not very much. So as you can tell from listening to our conversation and our report here on Newsbreak, there are troubling things that are happening in Mississippi. It's very troubling that minority businesses receive less than 2% of contracts for goods and services in the state of Mississippi. At one time, there were more African Americans in Mississippi than there were Europeans during this period of slavery. We get less than 2% of contracts for goods and services, even though we are 40% of the population of this state. That's unheard of. And then we take the funds that were designated to go to the least of us, and we push and siphon those funds off in inappropriate ways. And so corruption is live and well in Mississippi. And that's because our leaders are void of real integrity and the inability to stand up for what's right and what's good and what's decent. And that is being shown every day in Mississippi. The days of the internet when shows like this can get the word out all across 140 countries, then everybody has an opinion and has access to what is going on everywhere. We believe Digital.com is here to make absolute certain that we present this information in a way that it can be viewed, and that we don't allow others to change the narrative and paint the very people who need to be helped, to paint them as some victim or paint them as some perpetrator of the crimes that are taking place. It's important. What we do here is critically important, and we need your help. Need you to go to our website, WeBelieveDigital.com, and hit the donate button. Share with us, donate with us. Help us continue to get the word out. It's tremendously important. We cannot let everybody else control the narrative. So we're talking to the Ford Foundation, and we're talking to Kellogg Foundation, and we're talking to all organizations that say that they are interested in making a change to correct history, to give the least of us an opportunity to move into the middle class, to make a decent life for our families, etc. We're not going to be able to do that without your help. We're running out of time, and as always, we'll be back with you. Chris, I believe we'll be back on
Friday. Should be 2 p.m. on Friday.
2 p.m. on Friday. You any closing remarks, Chris?
I don't. It's a good opportunity to share what's really going on here with the people. So very grateful to do that.
This has been WeBelieveDigital.com. Until Friday at 2. Have a great day. Good evening.